Hey everyone, welcome. It's Dr. Naomi Wolf, and I'm here with one of my personal heroines. I'm so grateful you've made time for us as you hold the evil of the world at bay. It's Senator Kim Thatcher of Oregon. Welcome, Senator Thatcher.
Hi, Naomi. I'm so happy to be here, but not at the same time, because what we're talking about today is, well, my first thought that went through my head when I read this bill is, oh my gosh, they're begging God to smite us. The second thing that went through my head is this is such a multifaceted, multi-layered bill. There are so many different parts to it and so many different layers. It really should have been broken up into maybe 3 or 4 bills. But
let's start at the beginning. People who are unfamiliar with you may not know that you came to my attention because you've been a staunch, we're supposed to be nonpartisan, you happen to be a Republican. I think we're past times when any labels matter. You've been a staunch advocate for individual and constitutional liberties throughout this whole last 3-year period. Your district in Oregon, where is it precisely, and whom do you represent?
Centered basically on Salem. I'm sitting inside the Capitol. That is the southern boundary of the district, and then it goes on up through town up into Woodburn, which is a very diverse city.
Right. And so you represent kind of a cross section of Oregonians, and it's kind of a heartland kind of part of Oregon from what I felt. It's like got everything. And I guess I partly say that because one thing that's always I've admired about you is that you seem very passionately to care about serving your constituents, whomever they are, wherever they are, and defending their freedoms and their constitutional rights. So you have beat back many horrific bills. In my experience of following you, I had to get this interview because HB 2002B, which was sent to me by one of your constituents, I thought, and then I saw it, I'm on your mailing list, I thought it was a spoof. I could not believe it at first. So walk us through this. I still kind of can't believe it. And I think your reaction is right. We're begging God to smite us down. I mean, tell people what's in this absolutely head spinning, unbelievable bill.
Well, okay. So one of the first provisions is that a child of any age without parental knowledge can seek an abortion. Now, I can see where there might be situations where they're just assuming that the parents are dangerous, first of all. And second of all, there's going to be no safeguards for a trafficked child here. Right. There'll be no questions asked. They'll just be going in there and out, getting their procedure, and, sad. And further in that, it requires that a child give permission to the doctor in order to discuss with a parent. I mean, to me, parental rights is a thing. It should be respected. It has been throughout history, parents have the rights to say, what happens with their child. And so not only does it do that, it allows the child to, or the doctor, the provider, to use the health insurance plan of the parent and still do it without the knowledge of the parent. Oh, there's more. Then there's the irreversible gender affirming care is what they call it, but it's basically where they're trying to give puberty blockers or cross-sex hormones, or maybe even engage in surgery to affirm. And while that can be done age 15 and up without parental knowledge as well. And yes,
this bill.
You
mean any depressed 15-year-old can decide, well, I'm done with being a boy, or I'm done with being a girl, and without consulting or telling or getting permission from their parents, they can just start the process of changing their gender medically?
Yes, they can do it medically. They can do it, with the puberty blockers, the cross-sex hormones. They can do a social transition. It runs the gamut, and parents will not be involved.
Who pays for it?
Well, it depends on where the insurance is. If the parent has private health care, you can use that and still do it without knowledge of the parent. You would also, anybody who is covered through the state, whether it's through an employer, like state employer insurance, or school district or whatever, that has to pay for it. So it will be a taxpayer funded edict. And then the Oregon Healthcare.
Wait, you're going to that. I'm sorry to jump in, Senator Thatcher, but each of these is so stunning. So basically, I could be a parent in Oregon and I'll see some expenses on my insurance. I won't know, they won't be labeled clearly,
You
presumably.
may not see them.
I may not see them, but my child can have his penis cut off, or she can have her breasts cut off, and he or she can be put on hormones to turn him or her into the other gender, and I won't know what's going on. No one has to tell me. No one needs my consent. And any adult can say, look, we really think you think you're a girl, but we think you're a boy, go get that taken care of. And she can be bullied enough into doing it, and the parents are not.
Precisely.
Can the parents interfere and stop it, or is that a crime at this point?
Well, it hasn't been called out as a crime, but I've heard too many times, especially in other areas, where parents have been either had their parental rights questioned by child protective services or some such, and I could see that being a result of something like this. So you've got all the insurance companies and the state-funded insurance company, plus the Oregon Health Plan, which is for lack of a better term, more indigent, for lower income folks. But so that would all have to be covered. There are no choices. They must cover, and here's the list: medically necessary cosmetic procedures like a tracheal shave, hair electrolysis, facial feminization, surgery, and facial altering treatment.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And so back on the abortion bill, it would also decriminalize concealing the dead body of a newborn child.
Decriminalize concealing the dead body?
Yeah, making it so that it's no longer a crime to conceal the birth of a baby without saying. So when you find these babies in a dumpster or whatever, they want to track down the mother, and they're not necessarily looking to punish, but it just left it wide open to what will be happening and what can be happening and how can this be exploited by really bad people.
Oh gosh, I mean, each of these gives me chills. Like I can't believe we're having this conversation, but immediately I'm thinking of all those situations. Like, I know I'm going to sound so retro, but I'm bills like this are making me rethink my whole position on abortion rights, because really the only thing that has kept women who are helpless and girls who are helpless from being completely trafficked and exploited is the prospect that they'll get pregnant and then someone has to take care of the baby. Now girls can be trafficked with impunity. Their traffickers can just discard the babies and nothing will happen to them.
They can traffic those babies. Or traffic those babies. We don't know. I mean, they'd be totally off the record. I can just think of all kinds of a parade of horribles that could happen there. But then it also requires the student health centers that are in public universities and community colleges provide medical abortions to their enrolled students. That's also funded by taxpayers. And then it changes.
But no child care for babies of students.
No, nothing like that. No, they talk about reproductive rights, but they're not affirming that a woman in a an individual in a rural part of the state that may not have great access to an obstetrician to bring her child to term, there's no assurances to help her with that decision or with the decision to place her child for adoption should she choose.
Literally everything is saying, take a pill to get rid of it, get rid of it when you're a teenager. If it gets born anyway, get rid of it. Everything in this bill is saying we don't value babies in any way.
Right.
We don't value them after they're born. There's nothing we're going to do to save babies at any point in the gestational process. And by extension, girls and women are nothing but objects.
It seems that way, and it really
does. I cannot believe what I'm hearing. I mean, so basically, if you have a child and you think it will be an economic burden, you can expose the child just like the Romans used to do, leave it out on a hillside, and and you know, I'll keep 3 of my kids, but I'll leave 1 out to be exposed and die, and nothing will happen.
Nothing. It's
And,
decriminalized.
and there's nothing in this bill that says, you know, take it to an orphanage, take it to a convent, take it to a hospital. Nothing.
Nothing in this bill. There is, however, a bill that would that does encourage that. It's coming tomorrow to the floor, but I mean, it's not part of this. It's not part of this at all. It's
who came up with this satanic piece of Satanism? I'm not kidding.
You know, there are 42
No.
Democratic,
No.
we only have 90 legislators, 42 sponsors of this bill.
Who's paying them? Seriously, they can't authentically think it's a really good idea to expose newborns till they die and have that not be a crime.
Well, I mean, I can only guess that it would be somebody like Planned Parenthood or affiliated groups such as, Emily's List, things like, I think that's what they're called.
But I mean, can I just say, this is like, my head is exploding, of course. I've been a lifelong pro-choice advocate. I know the ladies at Emily's List, unless they've all like sworn to serve the Dark Lord since I last was in touch with them, they didn't want to kill living babies. No. You know, they didn't want to give, you know, well, I guess they did want to empower children to have abortions every chance they got, but they didn't care about gender affirming surgery. So why, like, what has led previously sane pro-choice activists to step into lunatic, unrelated issues like gender transitioning as minors, and to go into the business of killing living children? Like, that's not normal.
It is not normal. I just think they just want to make it so wide open, so unrestricted. We already have abortion without any restrictions here in Oregon. You get for any reason, anywhere along the line. They are claiming, because of the overturning of Roe v. Wade, that they had to do this, which is absolutely false. It didn't change anything we do here in Oregon. The only change you could possibly make to this is what they're doing now, is to decriminalize, you know, a child born or surviving an abortion. I think most people believe that if you know, a child went through that and is actually born, it should get care. But it takes that out, decriminalizes, you know, not reporting.
It takes out the obligation to care for a baby if the baby survives abortion.
Well, we don't have that. We don't have that obligation here in Oregon, but now they are saying,
if a baby is born alive in Oregon and survives an abortion, no one has the obligation to keep it alive.
Well, after having tried to put that into law and it being rejected, not because we already have the law, but because they didn't think that was reasonable. They took it down. I would say no, based on that. But
oh my God.
Yeah, we don't have regulations on the clinics that provide this, or places that provide this. So who knows? I mean, I remember it used to be safe, legal, rare. That was the mantra.
Right.
And it does not seem to be the case anymore. It has slipped way off to some other
my God. Senator Thatcher, what is the age at which it becomes a crime? Like, can you leave your toddler out and expose them? And like, what's the difference between exposing a newborn to death and exposing a 6-month-old to death?
That's a really good reason, but it does, I mean, a really good question, but I think it specifically says newborn. It's such a long bill, I can't find it, but it's a 45-page bill, over 45-page bill, but I think it does specifically call out newborn child, so not toddler.
And does that include healthcare workers, like a doctor? If a mother says in the hospital, I don't want this baby and I don't want anyone else to have it, can the doctor just incinerate it?
Good question. We don't know. All it does is decriminalize concealing the dead body of a newborn child. Now, there might be some other regulations restricting that action by a healthcare provider, but it's not covered in this bill. It's not referred to in this bill. So I'm saying there might be some other regulations. I would hope there would be, but it also takes out, it decriminalizes. They want to make sure that the providers of these abortions are all protected And they also make it a class, creates crime of interfering with a healthcare facility. So what does that mean? Well, if somebody's out there praying, you know, like some of the pro-life groups will do, they'll go out, they'll be on a sidewalk, a public sidewalk. And some people, in fact, the FBI is calling that interfering
Oh,
with
God.
healthcare. So they're punishing them with up a maximum of 364 days
Excuse me,
imprisonment.
Senator Thatcher, how is standing outside a facility praying construed as interfering?
Well, ask the FBI, because they're the ones that are going after groups and people that are doing just that, and being outside and just trying to make some positive contact and maybe send a message of hope that maybe you don't have to go this way. But
Oh my God,
I
they're
mean,
doing
that's
the
my
same thing in
understanding.
Britain, which suggests to me that it's coordinated. They're criminalizing women praying outside of abortion clinics in Britain as well.
Yeah.
But go ahead, keep going. Is there more to this
Well,
hellish bill?
crime. There's just a lot of questions, a lot of little things in there. You're wondering, okay, so you're focused on some of the big things that I've highlighted, but there's a lot of little things in here that, okay, so what is the effect of that going to be? And
Right.
because it's such a little minor line in the bill, in this big gargantuan multifaceted Frankenstein bill, that it's just not been properly vetted. In fact, in the policy committee, when it was being introduced, they had a hearing and they allowed everybody 1 minute to testify. 1 minute. Of course,
That's
after
a new thing, right? I mean, there's nothing in Oregon law that says that you have to cut people off at 1 minute. Like,
No.
I'm seeing this across the country, people given 2 minutes to speak at public meetings. That's new. There's nothing in New York state law that says you can limit what people have to say at a town hall meeting or at a hearing, right? So who's they? Who's limited?
They would be, okay, so when an election happens, you have a majority. And so here we have
The
a majority Democratic run legislature on both sides, in the House and in the Senate. Even though Republicans did gain some seats, we didn't make it even or take the majority. So the Democrats are in charge. They decide what bills will move forward, which ones will be heard, and the chairs decide how long and what. Sometimes they just want to hurry and get through it because they know they want the bill. They're just going to go through the motions of having this public hearing, even though they know where it's going to be,
So the Democrats in leadership in Oregon all say this, because you're much too nice to say it, are making up rules to limit people's First Amendment rights in public meetings.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, they are putting these limits on. There's no need for it.
Well, there's no law, right? It's not lawful to restrict people's speech that way. People don't know that, but it's my guess that this is nowhere codified in Oregon law. You can speak for 1 minute. No,
there's nothing like that. But they set the rules, and some chairs a little bit better than others. But some bills, the more controversial ones, they'll want to just get through it as fast as they can. They don't want questions from the committee. It's like a what do you call it? A witness mill where they're cutting testifying, and it's just one after the other after the other.
Is there any media covering this appalling bill or even the discussion about it?
There's so much other news right now, especially regarding our Secretary of State taking on a client in her off hours that is also the subject of an audit in her agency. Anyway, there's a whole bunch of stuff going on around that. So that's kind of drawing up the news cycle right now.
Right. So basically a lot of people don't know about HB 2002B.
Yeah, I don't no, I know they don't, because I talked to some people at church yesterday and they had no flipping idea that this was happening.
Holy cow. All right, what else is in the bill that we should know about, if anything? Well, or are those the main points? You broke it down really well in your newsletter.
Yeah, those are the main points. But the thing is, we've got places in Europe that kind of stepped into this arena of gender affirming care way back when. So I think Sweden was back in 1972, and they're putting the brakes on this for as far as it applies to minors. Norway, Finland, well, like I mentioned, Sweden, France, Britain, they're all looking at, it should be rare that we're looking at doing cross hormone therapy or puberty blockers or even surgery. That should be a last step. They should be looking at psychotherapy or calls it talk therapy, something where you're getting counseling.
Right. Why is it so hard to have a consensus that if you can't send children to war and you can't let children vote and you can't let them, own property, why can't we just agree that children can't make life-altering decisions? We don't let them have like breast implants without their parents' consent, like gender conforming breast implants, right? To my knowledge, you can't have tattoos, or even when I was a minor, I couldn't get my ears pierced, right? Without my parents' consent. So I don't understand what's wrong with just waiting, I guess is what I'm asking. When people challenge this, what's wrong with waiting till the kids are adults and then they can make the decision?
Well, and you bring up a really interesting point, because I'm on the Judiciary Committee, and time after time after time, we hear about young people committing a crime and they shouldn't be punished the rest of their lives because guess what? Their brains are not yet fully
developed. Exactly.
Why it does not apply here is a good
Well,
question.
I guess what I'm asking is, when people, and I'm a supporter of LGBTQ rights, right? But this is not, I don't believe this pressure is coming from the trans community. I think it's external. That's why I'm interested in the funding of these groups. But let me just go to what you can, bring out. When advocates for children choosing to change their gender without telling mom and dad make their case, and they're asked, why not just let them reach the age of 18? What's the hurry? What's the reason they give for the rush to transition 15-year-olds if they want to?
Here it is. Suicidality. They really pressure the parents and the adults, thinking that, oh, well, if we don't take care of this, it's going to be a higher rate of suicide.
Right.
And that's what they do. And I'm thinking, boy, if that is the best suicide prevention treatment we have, we're in big trouble. And if we cannot look at, other mental health care measures to be able to address a mental health situation, then, we're in big trouble. And you're right, there's a lot of money going into this.
Yeah, I'm also just thinking how weird that answer is, because there's so many conditions that, like when teenage girls are anorexic, they're not given fat suctioning operations, they're given psychotherapy, right? Kids are depressed, they're not given a giant allowance and a Maserati, they're given psychotherapy. It's so weird to solve a psychological problem with a physical answer. It goes against psychology and psychological practice, I would have thought.
That's what they're finding out. That's what they're finding out in these other European countries that stepped into this arena way before the United States did. But instead, we're just doubling down on it.
Right. So the answer is, we have to get these kids transitioned quickly or they will kill themselves. And that's what the hurry is.
That's essentially the message we are giving. Yes.
Oh my God. As someone who wrote a book called The Beauty Myth, I can't help thinking about how awful it is to be 13, for everyone, and how difficult it is for girls. And growing into a female body is difficult. And it would be very interesting to look at the gender breakdown of this, because if a 13-year-old girl, who's thinking about, oh my God, I might get pregnant, girls get raped, girls get victimized, you could wave a magic wand and just not be a girl. Like, who wouldn't? Right? Like, literally, who wouldn't? That's why I'm very interested in, and so what this does is it short circuits for girls. I'm sure it does for boys too in different ways, but it short circuits it pretends that there's a solution to adolescence and to the difficult, task every teenager has of growing into an adult and dealing with the body. And with things like sexuality. So it's just like, okay, never mind, here, we'll fix it with surgery.
Right.
So I guess immediately I'm just thinking about all those girls who were not satisfied with themselves for one reason or another, who used to become anorexic or bulimic. Well, now just bind your breasts, just get them cut off. Just, don't you want a penis? That would be, better than worrying about being a size 4 for the rest of your life. So many bad things can result from this normalization of this kind of drastic intervention.
And these kids, like what we mentioned, brain development, but they have no life experience, maturity level to understand the true ramifications of how that will affect their life, their sex life, everything.
And also, how much does it cost? Like, it blew my mind when someone explained to me that once you transition, that's not the end of it. You have to stay on these hormones for the rest of your life to stay transitioned. How much does it cost to stay female if you start out male?
I don't have that in front of me, but I remember us passing a bill not long ago to equalize the prices between the two genders as far as hormones, because the female hormones were much more expensive to maintain than the male hormones. I just remember that discussion, but I don't remember, what now the result of that is. But I just think there's a lot of money being made. OHSU has a gender clinic through the Dornbecker Children's Hospital, which used to be seen as this noble entity out there to help children and parents who can't afford a surgery, a really expensive surgery, to try to get them through that. And now I just have this completely different view of what they are. And I want to make sure I'm not against these children that are going through this. I feel for them. I mean, this is horrible to have that feeling of disconnect, whatever they're experiencing that I don't quite understand. I have compassion for that. And anybody that's gone through that, even as an adult, and their choice, that's their choice, especially as an adult. That's their choice. But when it comes to interfering with that parent-child relationship, and then going, behind everybody's back to make sure the state or an insurance company, which then also comes to all the customers, is paying for this, and then trying to talk kids into it. Have we noticed that there seems to be this upward trend in all this? Why is that? It's because it's being fed and taught to our children, whether it's being just exposure out in the different ways that they're trying to make sure they're getting in front of these kids, or if it's through the school counselors, OHSU, through the Dornbecker Children's Gender Clinic. They do these Zoom calls just like this. So you could be living in a far-flung part of Oregon and thinking, oh, and my child's safe from all that Portland stuff, but they're not.
And so your kid could be having Zoom calls without you knowing it as a parent?
Yeah, absolutely.
Isn't that a crime for an adult to talk about sex with a minor?
Yeah, one would think. Then you got to talk to our school boards about some of the stuff that's in our schools too. But it seems to be I don't know, some sort of divide there as far as thought process.
This is unbelievable. And for sure, I agree with you that this is, kids are being propagandized about this. Again, this is not coming, as I've said many times, I don't know any trans people who want to groom children. I don't know any trans people who, want children to be exploited like this. No. I don't know trans people who want to get rid of gender, which is this weird push that we're seeing culturally, or erase women. I don't know a single trans woman who wants to erase women. No. That is, I don't think this is organic at all. All right. Well, what hope do you have of killing this bill? You're not in a majority. You said you guys did better in the last election than previously. What strategy do Republicans have? I assume you've got some Democrats with you.
None that I know of. Not single Democrat that I know of is on our side on this.
Unbelievable. Yeah. But you said there were 42. Is that how many Democrats there are in
No, oddly. Okay, so every single Senate Democrat signed onto the bill last I looked, but there were 12 Democrat House members that did not sign on. It doesn't mean they won't end up voting for it, because they get their arms twisted off like none other, but they'll probably vote for it, but they didn't sign on. So I think that's kind of tells you that they might be a little bit, like not liking it. In fact, when they talked about it in the Ways and Means Committee, and talked about the fact that you can be a 10-year-old or 9 or any age that could get pregnant, be that young, and then not even have the requirement that a provider seek that there is even a parent in the picture here. Oh God. They were shocked. Like, well, it's right there in your bill. You sponsored it. What do you mean? The two people that were being questioned said, oh, that can't happen. And they were kind of like, oh, you could hear the gasp when it was told by the legislative council person who wrote the bill, said, well, yeah, actually, that is the case. You know, they were shocked. And I think it was two people that were on the Ways and Means Committee. I believe Elizabeth Steiner was one of them. And then I can't remember the other one. I have it out on a sheet of paper that's out on the front desk. But yeah.
We'll cut that. So Elizabeth Steiner, and with all the other things going on in Oregon right now, what's the move? Like, what's the urgency for this bill? The Democrats who led the charge on HB 2002B,
right.
What reason did they give for this being so important right now?
I don't know.
Okay, so everyone, you won't believe this. It looks like Elizabeth Steiner Hayward hears that she's a physician, or she's wearing a white coat and a
she's a family physician, yes.
A Democratic member of the Oregon Senate representing the 17th district. She was appointed to the Senate, how can you do that? Following the resignation of her predecessor, Suzanne Bonamici. So everyone, you need to call Senator Elizabeth Steiner. And her number is 503-986-1717. Her email is sen.elizabethsteiner@oregonlegislature.gov. And she teaches medical students and residents at OHSU. She's in healthcare. So this is what leads me to suspect there's a lot of money from pharma and from hospitals flowing to this bill.
I would imagine also.
Because I mean, I'm getting chills just thinking about this, but a teenager who has multiple abortions is going to, or at least one, is going to bring in more revenue than a teenager who is chaste or uses birth control responsibly.
It's very true. And while it's supposed to be, they're still debating it as I speak on the House floor. So they started at 9 this morning, and they're still debating it. The Republicans are making motions to move it to different committees and giving the reasons why. So it's still an ongoing thing. But
all right. Well, how long do we have to get Elizabeth Steiner's?
Well, it'll be coming to the Senate. It'll be coming to the Senate. Theoretically, it would be up for second reading tomorrow and then being voted on the next day.
Is it televised, Senator Thatcher?
It is. It's on the OLIS. If you just look up OLIS, Oregon, OLIS, Oregon, you'll see, and then you'll see the chambers on the left side. You'll see the Senate chamber, and there's a little camera you can click on.
You've got to contact Elizabeth Steiner, Senator Elizabeth Steiner.
All the Senate Democrats.
All the Senate Democrats.
All sponsors.
And we need to, like, the people of Oregon don't have a lot of power in this moment in terms of stopping this bill, from the way I understand your legislative processes. But horrified Democrats across the country, especially if you're donors, you need to call. Horrified Republicans across the country, you need to call and say that you're going to be donating to the opposition in Oregon. And we need to turn this into a lesson, a test case of how to stop a criminal bill. So that the people of Oregon don't suffer alone through this. I should wrap up just because our audience likes shorter videos.
Sure. I just want to give a quick heads up on Senate Joint Resolution 33, which would become a constitutional amendment to put in basically everything that's in 2002, having to do with gender identity, sexual orientation.
Into your Constitution?
Into the Constitution, yes. So it would be sent to the people, but the people who were the proponents of the resolution got to write the ballot measure title. So they put their thumb on the scale as to how the vote will come out, because they make it sound so, oh, well, it's about abortion. Oh, okay, yeah. And getting rid of same-sex marriage.
So they want to put these capabilities into your Constitution.
Well, that's the enactment would be the Constitution would solidify the statute. The statute is the 2002B, and then the Constitution would just firm it up and make sure, nobody could stand against it.
No one could get rid of it.
Right.
Including the exposing babies part?
Well, because that has to do with pregnancy outcomes, and health-related decisions, I'm sure. I mean, that's how it'll be justified.
This is going to turn Oregon into hell on earth.
Kind of what my thoughts were.
I'm so sorry you're fighting this battle, Senator Thatcher. So in addition to having everyone call all the Democrats in the Oregon State Senate, and call your office presumably to support you, right? Is that helpful?
I mean, if they feel like it, but I'm
What's
already.
the best way they can use their time?
I
Until
would
this?
say contacting, either emailing or contacting, and you can get all their emails. I can send you that, and you can send it out, or
Yes, please. We'll do a special mailing.
Yeah, I can do that, and then we get them all in one spot, and just send them all your thoughts on these bills.
Oh my gosh.
Of course.
Right, civilly, of course. And we have how long? Just one day?
Pretty much.
Okay.
Yep. Between now and then the end of day tomorrow, because theoretically Wednesday would be the day it would be up for a third reading, meeting up to vote on.
Understood. Wednesday. Wow. All right, Senator Thatcher, where can people find you and donate to you if they'd like?
Well, I could give you that later. I'm on a state computer, so I'm really.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Where do people find you if they want to follow you?
Yeah, I'm on kimthatcher.com.
Senator Thatcher, you're such a warrior. It's always such a pleasure to talk to you, even when you're shining a light on something truly monstrous. And I hope good people together inside and outside of Oregon can support everyone in Oregon of whatever their background who is not murdering babies and destroying the bonds between mothers and fathers and children. Thank you so much, Senator Thatcher, for talking to us. Hey everyone, it's Naomi Wolf of Daily Clout, and I just want to give a thank you to our sponsor, The Wellness Company, whose chief medical team includes some of our most respected colleagues, including Dr. Peter McCullough and Dr. Harvey Risch. So the Wellness Company offers COVID and vaccine injury treatments, including ivermectin, as well as dietary supplements based on the guidance of these noted physicians and epidemiologists, such as Spike Support, which is designed to help combat spike protein. So click on the link below or head to dailyclouthealth.com to purchase their products. You can also gift healthcare to your loved ones, which is something I've been doing. I'm excited about the Wellness Company being able to offer medical advice without the pressure of big pharma. Please use the code DailyClout for 10% off. Thank you again to the Wellness Company, our sponsor. Bye-bye.